All right, the Hangout on air is live. So what we're gonna do, Devin, is we're just gonna wait for the Steam Mobile Tech viewers and subscribers to kind of get into the live chat, and we'll wait for people to pile in.
All right, sounds good.
All right, we got somebody's in here. Somebody's in the live chat right now. All right, you seem to be feeding pretty well. Your quality's pretty good.
So I had to come back here. I know network was good, but running too much at a time was just it can kind of put it at capacity, especially
Yeah.
on a Friday night.
Okay. We've got some people in the live chat. For those of you just starting to pile into the live chat, go ahead and say your formal hellos. We do have a special guest today joining me. We do have Devin. He's going to be joining us for some conversation. And what we'll do is we'll just kind of wait for the rest of us to kind of get in here and just go ahead and say your formal hellos as you guys pile
All right, Mr. Sneed, thanks for having me, and
in.
hello everybody.
Yeah, we got Devin in the house. Pleasure having you, my friend. For those of you that aren't really sure what's going on, you guys know how I like to do things here on Steam Mobile Tech. Throw a kind of like a curveball your way. Do have a special guest today, so don't be surprised when you hear a different voice and you see a different face on occasion. Devin's joining me for this edition of the podcast, and we'll be giving you guys a live stream for about 30 or 40 minutes tonight. So as you guys are piling in, go ahead and give me your formal hellos as you usually do. It'll be good to see and chat with you guys here. What's going on? We had a lot happen this week, Devin. A lot of news.
A lot of news.
It was a very active week for T-Mobile.
Yeah, so they are showing that they are trying to perfect the 5G race, and everything that they're wanting to deliver, they're getting, their feet in the water on it. So hopefully we'll see some great things from them in the near future.
I think, when it comes to T-Mobile, what they're really trying to do is, and not that there's anything wrong with it, I think what they're trying to do is really show uh, any type of pushback parties.
Hmm.
Some people think it's like a democratic thing, or I don't really see it as a party thing because it's really just about two groups that are going to be approving the merger. So I think they're trying to show the FCC and the DOJ specifically, actually, that the merger is going to allow them to do something disruptive and create a more interesting dynamic in competition in big cable.
Right.
And I don't know anybody that truly celebrates and likes their cable company, their cable provider, home
Hmm.
ISPs. So, and I was looking in the comment section and people were loving the announcement. I mean, if you go back to any of the videos from this week, I mean,
Yes.
people are like, I want to get rid of HughesNet. I've never even heard of HughesNet.
Usenet,
Uh,
usually around the Midwest
yeah, it's like a
United States.
Midwest satellite provider,
Yeah.
and everybody hates them, and everybody hates Cox, and everybody hates Comcast and Charter. Like these companies are detested, and T-Mobile is known for being like a customer care advocate.
Correct.
So, I mean, this is just a great opportunity for them to run this test bed. And, it kind of is an indication that they are trying to be disruptors in an otherwise pretty stale, business market.
Well, see, they are. Let's see. The thing is this: most people despise their cable companies because you live in one area. You can only really choose between, you know, one provider of one type. Like you can get multiple providers, but you get one in the DSL, which is long despised because there's not much speed or capacity to them. Then you only have one choice in cable, in which cable provides the speeds and capacity, but their prices are never guaranteed, and their
Right.
prices continue to raise throughout time, and it's like, loyal customers in the long run pay more price for virtually no reason whatsoever. And that's what people hate. Satellite internet is a last ditch alternative to high speed. But the thing is, it's ungodly expensive to install and almost just as ungodly expensive to maintain. And the speeds aren't that great.
All
That's
right. I
what
mean,
people
we're
despise.
already so we got a lot to cover, and that's part of it. I mean, those are great points. We're gonna come back to that in a second, but let's go ahead and this is what I always do on the channel. I always kind of like to get those that are in the chat involved. So let's just go ahead and say some hellos and then we'll get into the topics. So, for those of you just tuning in, the man you hear talking is Devin. He is a SNE Mobile Tech subscriber, viewer, and longtime commenter. And I thought it would be a good idea to kind of bring him on and join us in the discussion on the podcast. He's got some great experience within the industry. He's worked with several of the different providers and carriers within the U.S., and he's been a longtime consumer advocate, consumer himself. So I think with his insight and his experiences, it'll be a very valuable discussion between him and myself as we go through today's podcast. So before we get going, let's just give some shout outs to those in the live chat. We have Chanel 808 Life Hawaii. Aloha, my friend. Glad you could be here. Gary
Aloha.
Nichols, my dude. Thank you for being here. We got Berkey. Hey, buddy. Just says hey. Gary says, hey, Devin. Shout out to you there.
How's it going, Gary?
And we got Dark Vader in the house, always in the house. Thank you for being here. Big Mo Assad, thank you for being here, buddy. Gary says, I hate Xfinity. I mean, Devin, are you surprised by that statement?
Surprise. I kind of stopped being surprised at those quite a few years ago.
All right. John M. Sneed the Bay. Oh, God. What is going on? Dark Vader says, salute, Devin. Make sure you're watching. And I think that's it. That's everybody that's kind of active in the live chat right now. So let's go ahead and get to the topics. So we've kind of got like a plan and how we want to approach today's live stream podcast.
Yes.
So what we'll do is I think we'll spend a little bit of time on all the topics. Let's first just give Devin kind of his formal introduction opportunity. So we have Devin here. Devin has a bit of a background with the carriers, working as an associate, customer care. I think he's done some different technical work with a couple of different carriers. So, Devin, go ahead and give us a breakdown of where you're from, what you've done in the industry, your experiences as a consumer and as a tech.
All right. First of all, my name is Devin. I've lived in Northeast Tennessee most of my life. I've lived down in Goshen, Mississippi during Hurricane Katrina season. I spent most of my time also as a kid in Greenville, South Carolina. I've been all throughout the eastern part of the states, but Tennessee's been my home. Personally, about me, I have a 1-year-old daughter. I have 2 stepdaughters as well, coming up on 12 and 9. As I mentioned, I've been in interested in wireless throughout so many years since they came to be. I've worked for Sprint directly as a care advocate and also in Tier 1 support. I've done work in AT&T quite a few years ago, back when they were up and coming. As many of y'all might know, when iPhones first came out and the Motorola Razr.
Yeah.
I've
Remember
done
those
some
years?
work
We're
for
talking, what,
Verizon.
like late 2000s?
Yeah, 2008.
Yeah.
And I've done some work on Verizon, more so selling of their services and phones, and just plentiful other work as contractor for carriers.
Okay. So you've got several years of experience in the business, in the industry.
Yes,
How old are you again, Devin?
I am 31.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit of history. We do have some very young viewers, and then we have some viewers that are on the more experienced side. So, in terms of the history of wireless, what have you watched since your wireless experience probably goes back to the early to mid 2000s?
Yes, coming up to the days on brick phones, coming up to the days on the wired car phones that somehow you can keep your number with. I was 20 years old when I really got into wireless. Dealing with AT&T mostly in the Midwest region, and then they pitched their rollover minutes, which was a good idea, but not so much their data when they evolved. And their pricing was okay. They were working on, they were then working on their network to make it stronger. And that they did. And of course, Verizon was stepping their game up as well when they got 3G coverage just taking off like a forest fire.
Now, if you remember at that time, Verizon had a single approach, and that was gobble up and chew up as many regional carriers as possible.
Yes.
And
To
I was
say
part of that. I had Alltel.
yeah, their biggest acquisition was Alltel.
I mean, they
My
snatched
father
up
had
like all those customers,
yes, and that was their plan to become a super giant, and for the longest time they have been.
and they just got huge. I mean, they added every regional Alltel customer, as
Hmm.
well as other regional carriers too. I mean, they had tons of smaller carriers in Indiana, Illinois, Kentucky. I mean, they
Yeah.
just took all of that.
Yes, everywhere in the United States.
And you know what the irony is when you look at the merger today and what's being proposed. I mean, Verizon gobbled up so much market share, and there was nothing to slow them down. They just went
Right.
ahead and kind of did it. And this merger has a lot of objection from a lot of different representatives, within Congress. They've got a lot of questions. There's a lot of those that oppose. So how'd they let Verizon do that?
Honestly, probably in those days coming up when Verizon was getting expanded, they were dependable. They were allowed to acquire all those, areas because they showed the power of what networking can really do. So they were the first to really get up off the ground with it. Now, as far as how they are today, why the government is so heavily backing Verizon, I mean, I honestly think that is just nothing more than the power of the dollar at this point.
Oh, they're just such a power player within the industry.
Yes, yes. It's like anything bad that can happen to them could be like a potential no-fly zone, if that makes sense.
Right. Now AT&T is also, I mean, they've been making huge moves, right, with the Time Warner acquisition. And
It was,
AT&T's always been this way. They tried to buy T-Mobile, what, 7, 8 years ago,
yes.
and they failed. At the time, I don't think the Obama administration was going to let that happen. Democrats usually don't take too kindly to mergers and acquisitions.
Not a whole lot, but we can, I mean, let's take a look at the potential impact of AT&T acquiring T-Mobile. For most customers and what I've gathered, working for AT&T in multiple departments, including wireless, broadband, home, and even in roadside assistance, I believe that there are a lot of unreal expectations, to garner sales, garner revenue. So you'll catch representatives lying. Like let's take a recent report about AT&T's 5GE.
Oh
It
God.
failed on 4G speeds behind Verizon and T-Mobile, but
You
it's
know what?
supposed to be 5G evolution.
So you're totally right. I saw the report. I'm actually going to do a video on it. Hopefully, I can get that script done and then get the video put out at some point by the end of the weekend. Uh, the report is very detailed, actually, from Open Signal.
Yes.
AT&T really just kind of denied the report and tried to basically just try to disqualify it. And the bottom line is AT&T's 5GE, which is basically just that stamp at the top of the status bar of a phone's connectivity.
Hmm.
It is essentially LTE advanced, and it's still slower than Verizon's regular LTE advanced and T-Mobile's regular LTE advanced.
Yes.
So it's nowhere near 5G. It's not a standards based 5G. It's not 5G in any way, shape, or form. And they're being called out by Open Signal, which to me, honestly, I think what this does, this puts a feather in the cap for Open Signal.
Hmm.
It
Open
makes them almost
Signal.
like a trusted voice, you know?
Yes, because the difference between root metrics and Open Signal uses actual crowdsourced data for the majority of their reports. I mean, they take reports from every corner of the United States. Root metrics has been known long enough for pandering to Verizon and perhaps AT&T in some of those states. You take a look at root metrics, I guarantee you won't see a single award on there won by T-Mobile or Sprint, but you take a look at Open Signal and see how many awards T-Mobile has compared to that. So it kind of
Well,
makes you wonder.
I think T-Mobile is very deserving of their awards. When you look at
Yes.
what T-Mobile's done with the expansion of their LTE, it's been very rapid. I mean, no uh, customer care advocate could put any company in front of T-Mobile, and then no no person in the right business mind could say that they've ever seen this type of growth from a wireless provider. Like
Hmm.
they've got literally like 20 quarters in a row of like huge growth.
Yes.
Like that's unprecedented. We've never seen that, even during the smartphone boom of like 6 years ago.
Yes.
Like we didn't see those types of ads except from T-Mobile. Like AT&T's never done that. I mean, they've just acquired customers along the way. They've been around forever. Same thing with
Yes.
Verizon. It's not that they're having growth. In fact, those companies don't grow much. They try to add revenue streams from pre-existing customers.
Right.
Right? They're trying to get people to add lines here and there and trying to get them to buy devices. But like T-Mobile is the growth in the wireless provider space.
And that's the kind of thing that is needed because it's more than just adding, towers. They're adding, range of coverage. All the 700 megahertz that they bought was instrumental in their step to blanket the United States. And now that they've acquired 600 megahertz and they're upgrading to I believe this 600 megahertz, since their licenses cover 100% of the United States, I believe that once this 5G expansion takes off, there won't be a single place in the US that won't be covered.
But it's contingent upon the merger.
Correct. I
I mean,
mean,
they
the
really
merger,
do need that. Like the spectrum holdings that Sprint has is is going to be the key cog in a couple of things. It's going to help T-Mobile finish its LTE deployment,
mhm.
and it's going to be their 5G.
Well, what's going to be different about the new T-Mobile versus AT&T and Verizon? AT&T and Verizon are deploying, or well, Verizon, I'm going to say because I don't know what you call AT&T's deployment.
Yeah.
They're deploying millimeter wave spectrum, just in pockets of large cities, but they're going to act on that alone. While it is good for super capacity, it's not at all dependable for penetration of buildings or really anybody. I could stand in front of its path and potentially cut your signal off. It's not good for range of coverage either. What new T-Mobile plans on doing with their 5G network is going to be truly mobile, just like the LTE, and it will transition smoothly between LTE and 5G. That's what they plan on doing. And I think with the spectrum holdings that they could acquire from Sprint and strategic deployments, they'll be able to pull this off everywhere.
So we're pretty much in agreement that AT&T's 5G thus far has been bullshit.
Yes,
It's not 5G in any form. It's LTE advanced, and it's not even that great actually. And my goal is to not put down AT&T, but I mean, a duck's a duck, right? It quacks like a duck. It walks like a duck. You got to call it like it is.
exactly.
I
And the
don't
thing
hold
is that
punches on the channel. I can't do it.
if you've taken a look at the congressional hearing where John Ledger and Marcelo Clore were present, you can see that a person that was contracted to AT&T, he was speaking so heavily against the merger going through. And I think what that should mean to consumers is that AT&T knows that they lied to consumers about what 5GE is, and finally they're being called out on that.
Well,
And I think
Sprint
it's just
dogged them.
yeah, I mean they Sprint put them in their place, and I think this is just a more so childish demonstration of, well, if I can't have it, no one can. That's the kind of strategy AT&T is trying to put out. Meanwhile, Verizon is taking advantage of so many people trust in them that most people would believe every word that comes out of their mouth without thinking. They're not the originators, probably the originators in network expansion, but every practice today they are not the originators of.
So let's transition away from that. Let's talk Verizon.
Okay.
Uh, let's talk specifically Verizon 5G. Uh, Now, in terms of fixed 5G, it's old news. Verizon has basically backtracked. They've kind of put a stop to 5G deployment, their fixed 5G, because they
Uh-huh.
want to go standards based. First, they were kind of initially rolling out a proprietary solution, and
Yes.
they're like, well, we're already close to a standards based. Let's just stop whatever we're doing. Let's get standards based. And obviously, that was smart. I
Yes.
mean, not many companies are willing to like admit they were wrong. And I think Verizon did. And
Yes.
because of that, they were like, okay, well, we can stop investing in the wrong thing. Now that we got standards based around the corner, we're going to do that. So let's leave fixed out of this. Let's talk 5G mobility. That's what Verizon's calling it. Verizon 5G mobility. You
Correct.
have one particular device. It is a Moto Z3 with a 5G Moto mod.
Yes.
That is the only 5G device. We have the Samsung Galaxy S10 5G variant. That's going to be coming soon. It's not available yet. I think
Correct.
there's some news actually on it that came out this week, but I'll have to do an update some point this week on the channel.
Late spring to summer is its projected release, if I'm not
So
mistaken.
June-ish.
Somewhere around there.
Okay. All right. So right as of right now, it's meaningless. There's going to
Right.
be an LG that's going to be 5G. So it's really limited hardware. Uh, Now, the worst part about the 5G deployment for mobility is it's two markets.
Yes.
It's like three locations or something in Minnesota, in Minneapolis, and it's five locations within the city of Chicago.
Yes.
And of course, in Chicago, it's going to be locations that are heavily occupied from shoppers. I know I saw the Magnificent Mile was mentioned. I saw the Loop. I don't know the city of Chicago that well. I've been to Chicago, so I know those things. But just think about those little pockets that you were talking about. They are the first to 5G.
Yes.
Okay, so good for you, Verizon. You were the first to 5G. But like, where are the phones? Where are the markets? What does it matter? You're going to celebrate. We were the first to 5G in Minneapolis and Chicago over 5 blocks. So, as a consumer myself, I can't get excited about that. I live in Cleveland.
Well, here's the thing. Verizon has been needing to say that they were the first to something for quite some time. Let's just put it this way. You remember back in the earlier days when every carrier heavily criticized T-Mobile on their limited data plans by slowing their speeds down after they hit their limit. Everybody else charged you astronomical fees and overage.
But
And
now
then they want
everybody's
to,
doing that, though.
yeah, everybody is now doing that. And then they all want to try to take credit for that without crediting T-Mobile for being the first to do something like that. Unlimited data. Sprint was the first one to heavily market that. And Verizon wants to act like, oh, hey, we're doing this one thing for customers. Oh, we care about our customers. I mean, it's just more so, trying to take bragging rights that isn't theirs. So they, in a desperate heap, wanted to get 5G live in those areas to say they can be the first to do it. But you need the signal for one. You need the phones, the hardware, and the firmware that support all of that. Without that, it's useless, as you mentioned.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't have any meaning to me. And honestly, I look at a city that I live in. I live in Cleveland. My market is not a big market. It's not like Chicago. It's not like Minneapolis.
Right.
Those are big cities. And I'm expecting Cleveland to probably get 5G in a second or third wave of 5G deployment.
It's very well
Like if
possible.
because I just can't see it. Like Cleveland has a population that doesn't compare to a larger city like Houston or Dallas or LA. You know what I mean? So like those cities
Yes.
get precedence because they're the ones that have the population to serve that would need that capacity, right? 5G. You're going to
Correct.
have 50, 60,000 people at an event. Concert series are huge. A lot of people
Tapings,
in city
live
centers. Right.
streaming,
Yeah.
videoing. So you're going to need all the capacity you can get that they can get their hands on in order to support everyone doing it at once.
So I'm expecting my city to get it in a second or third wave of deployment. So as of right now, the Verizon 5G is almost meaningless. I know it's there. They won. Good for you. You guys were the first to 5G. And it still doesn't really do anything. It doesn't really make any waves. It doesn't have any type of substantial feel that they've achieved anything.
One
Um,
could wonder if their limitations to the number of devices that they have could be a hidden message because think about the way that they're doing unlimited. They 22 gigabytes at their second tiered unlimited, you're likely going to get slowed down because the network stays congested most of the time.
right.
You got the Go Unlimited, which if the network is congested, your speeds are going to get slowed. The heavy throttling, the unknown throttling, the throttling of the first responders. I mean, I think that's an indication at that point that their network wasn't built for that heavy demand. So if they want a 5G network for that heavy demand, they're going to need to invest every single resource they possibly have into it. And it's going to be a very costly path.
So here's what I've noticed from the last couple of years with Verizon. Verizon has already begun their decommissioning of their older tech.
Yes.
So they're refarming all of the 1X, 2X, Edge, 3G, all that's going to LTE.
Yes.
The 5G is going to be all millimeter wave based, and they've got a ton of millimeter wave.
Yes.
It's not enough, obviously, but they're going to need more. But they do have a good start. Now, I remember the first responders thing. I don't think the first responders were throttled because the network couldn't handle it. I think that's just Verizon with their middle fingers to their customers.
Exactly.
Honestly, like I did a video. I don't remember, man. It might have been about 7 or 8 months ago. It was kind of like it was a collection of data from network testing. It showed like out of the four carriers, which networks were operating at what capacity. And Verizon was the only network operating above 50% capacity. It was like 55%.
Yes, but that was how long? You said it was what, like quite a few years ago?
It was like 8 months ago.
8 months ago?
So it was, obviously after the unlimited came back and, they had tweaked, a couple different types of unlimited options. But like AT&T's at 29%, T-Mobile's at 28%. You get what I'm saying? Like Sprint's like in the low 20s. So overall, like Verizon is maximizing their network. If anybody knows management of the network, Verizon would have to be the ones, right? They'd be the ones with the most careful management because they're operating at such a high capacity.
Correct, but if they have the capacity to handle it, why other reason would there be to, throttle people at every twist and turn?
One reason, Devin, and they want them paying the extra 10, $20 per month to go 1080p, to go 75 gigs before deprioritization and so forth.
Oh, not to mention you're going to pay an extra fee for 5G access too.
Slap another $10 on there if you want to run your Moto Mod and Moto Z3 thing.
No, I think that's one thing that they are very good originators at, and that are fees, fees, and fees. Just
Yeah.
like, remember when they introduced safety mode, which was
Safety
the
mode is some
T-Mobile
bullshit. Come on, man.
2G speed when you hit your data limit. You pay $5 a month for that.
You can't even check your email on 2G. Let's be real, man.
You can maybe get a text message out there or send a picture. That's it. Maybe.
I think, honestly, man, if a phone has LTE signal, even if it's in full deprioritization,
Yes.
it still has to get 3 megabits per second.
At the very least.
At the very least, because at least you can, you could load a video at like 360p, 480p.
Yes.
Okay, so it can't be HD, but something.
The 2G was really good for data access as far as tracking you. If you had to call 911 or someone needed to triangulate your location, it was good for that because you could at least obtain a connection and enough speed to transmit that data. It didn't take much to do so. The 3G, 1 to 3 megs per second at highest, allowed you to do video. As a matter of fact, third generation was made for video. Fourth generation 4G and LTE were higher capacity, high definition, and a high amount of high broadband apps.
Devin, what we're gonna do, we've been having some good convo here, but let's get to the live chat. Some people are kind of chiming in. Let's see. John M says, Sneed, you better do the AT&T LTE only challenge. Hey, I might have to. The Verizon one turned out pretty good. I'd be curious to see what AT&T would be like in my area. Something tells me they would be okay because I've had AT&T in the past. Their capacity is usually pretty good, right? I don't know. What do you think would be the outcome in that, Devin?
As far as the outcome in AT&T, most recently, my work in roadside dealing with the wireless customers, I had a lot of dropped calls, so I can't imagine the data being too much better. So that remains to be seen. And second of all, considering their 5GE button, how do you know what speed they're really getting?
Yeah, but I still would like to test it. You just never know. Market to market things can vary.
Good for data analysis.
Yeah. Let's see here. John also says, I think that the phones get delayed because the network build out isn't there yet. What good is a 5G phone if it literally works in 5 places total across the country? See, but that's like the chicken and the egg thing. How long are we going to do this, right? Like carriers are saying, oh, the phones aren't there. And then the phone manufacturer is like, yeah, well, we got the chips and we're making them, but the network's not there. It's just ridiculous. And that's why I think 2019 is not the year of 5G. I think
No.
2020 is the year of 5G.
Yes. 2019 is the year of, is a year that it's supposed to be born, and then 2020 is the year that it's going to be live.
So they're just hatched eggs, right?
Yes, yes.
All right. Also in the chat, Gary says T-Mobile will be the first to nationwide 5G next year. I trust them. Gary, I don't think they'll be the first to nationwide 5G next year. You got to give them the merger, and that's going to take at least 2-3 years. What do you say, Devin?
Probably. I mean, they're going to have to finalize the deal. Of course, the deal is going to cost about $78 billion to acquire if approved. But T-Mobile, where it took them a little bit to get expanded, but you saw how absolutely godlike their expansion were. They've been proving that slow and steady wins the race. So they've
Well, it
been.
hasn't been slow recently.
It hasn't. I mean, they've been ever since they started the expansion is just pretty much momentum from that point. So
Right.
they're trying to get their network right before they deploy it. So I think that's one thing that served them very well, and customers notice that.
You know, I would hate to see Sprint go to any other company
Oh
other
yeah,
than T-Mobile.
correct. Because with AT&T and Verizon known for raising prices and charging fees, it would be a total nightmare if they got their hands on that spectrum. And
Right.
that's going back to the earlier topic of, well, if we can't have it, no one else can. That's what their opposition is about. They're scared.
That 2.5 gigahertz spectrum holding that Sprint has, that is an absolute game changer for T-Mobile.
It is insane. Like,
If you think about this, if the merger goes through, but a concession is that they have to give up 2.5 gigahertz, if I was T-Mobile, I'd want my money back, and I'd say to
yeah,
hell with the merger.
yeah, because that's the whole point of acquiring it. Because you're talking about average speeds up at this point, probably of about 300 to 400 megabits per second. The lowest that 5G is projected to be, and peak speeds for 5G coming up about 3 to 5 gigs per second.
I'm not sure when that would happen, but with latency being at 1 millisecond or lower, and as long as the speeds, I think by 2025, as long as we're seeing like 500 megabits per second and up, I
Yes,
think that's a win.
that's exactly what's going to happen.
Also in the chat, Cameron says, in the last few months, I've noticed HSPA Plus is useless now. I mean, I remember when HSPA Plus was the best, was
Yeah, it's pretty
fast.
much a GSM carrier's answer to 4G WiMAX on the CDMA side.
Gary says, I wish Verizon can go bankrupt. Yeah, good luck with that, Gary. I mean,
Yeah,
look, Verizon and AT&T literally have over 90% of the profitability in wireless.
yeah.
That shows you their stranglehold on the market.
Well, but then again, sometimes the mighty can fall. So I think with this, if this merger goes through, that they'll be able to take it to the two giants.
Yeah, I at first I opposed the merger, and let me explain why. I opposed the merger because I hate losing a competitor.
Right.
But the truth of the matter is that Sprint has not been competing for years. So we've only had two with the underdog three in T-Mobile.
Correct.
Like, God, man, Sprint's been so bad for so long in terms of their lack of growth. They haven't been able to compete in customer acquisitions, and retention has been poor. Their churn rate's been high. Their profitability's been low. The only way to compete is if they're giving away service.
Correct. I mean, at that point, yes, which, their plans, especially their unlimited premium, is living proof of it with everything that it offers. But a lot of it is they don't have the money, the resources to deploy other technology, and T-Mobile needs more of it. So they're the yin and yang at this point.
All right, Devin, let's talk the T-Mobile home internet testing bed, the pilot program. I did a video on this. I don't know if it was
Yes.
yesterday, the day before. I'm losing track of all my days. Um, so essentially, what T-Mobile's doing is they're sending out like a small time rollout of
Yes.
their home internet provisions. They're going to be giving people a router free of charge. The service is going to be $50 a month to customers that are pre-existing.
Yes.
The people that they're serving are underserved rural America.
Yes.
And It's completely over their LTE network.
With every new program, I mean, you got to do a test launch. You got to do a beta program because they want to see how it works. I mean, because experimenting with it is the only way they're going to know. So
Right.
those 50,000 people, and for those that don't know, it's an invite only type of event. So if you don't get that, you're not taking part in it. But they want to test exactly, how their speeds are going to run. But I think it's very, very important that their wireless network and their home internet will have the exact same capabilities and functionalities. Like my biggest fear on that at this point is if I use my phone with data, it can hit my internet speed and vice versa. So I think that's what they want to find out, and if it does, how to correct that.
Now, in terms of the network performance, what they're shooting for is 50 megabits per second,
Hmm.
and they're going to go no data cap.
And that's the way the internet was meant to be. There shouldn't be any limitations on speed, how much data you use. It's like in 2016 when John Ledger made the T-Mobile announcement that the industry should be unleashing internet and wireless, not standing in the way of it.
And that's always been the difference between T-Mobile and the rest of the carriers.
Exactly.
The whole idea of net neutrality is to protect, World Wide Web usage. People connecting to their apps, running their services. They shouldn't be stalled and have obstacles.
And that's the one thing that T-Mobile is looking to maintain is the net neutrality. But when this whole thing comes to an end, because it has been voted on for net neutrality to end and be repealed, I'm afraid to see if internet users, companies who are getting hit with that type of thing will pass costs off to customers. That's the only thing that I predict is going to happen.
And that's really unfortunate. I would have never have foreseen this about 10 years ago. This is probably the worst thing that could have happened to the internet.
It is. I mean, nowadays, the United States, in terms of our basic needs, wireless, broadband, for the most part, it's just not been friendly to customers. We need that disruptor.
So let me ask you this, Devin. In your humble opinion,
Hmm.
merger is approved.
Yes.
How do you think this T-Mobile home internet thing is going to pan out?
As mentioned, the 2.5 gigahertz spectrum, that is the key. That is a key to high capacity, high speeds, and allowing so many people connected. If approved, how it plays in the home internet.
Now, what if it's denied? What if it's doesn't get approval?
If it gets denied, I'm wondering as far as I'm wondering just as far as how everything's going to function next. I think our future as far as whether or not we're leading in technology or we fall behind it is riding on the merger, and that's the thing everybody's scared about. They're scared to take that chance. If it gets denied, the companies are going to have to try to come up with 5G on their own. Sprint eventually would go bankrupt, and then their spectrum could be auctioned off, and that's what Verizon and AT&T are betting on, so that they can get their hands on it, finally have the capacity, but they're going to charge outrageous prices to use it. I mean, that I could guarantee would be a result.
So here's my take. I mean, if you want to hear my opinion, you could say
Yeah,
no.
go ahead.
uh, if the merger is approved, 5 years from now, T-Mobile's goal is to get in 90% of the homes in the U.S. Or no, 50% of the homes in the U.S., 90% of American coverage, right?
Yes.
I don't know if they get that far, but they would become the new competitors for satellite companies
Hmm.
like HughesNet and all these different companies that people were telling me about in the comment section of my last video. They're telling me they're paying $130 a month for satellite internet, 5 megabits per second on the download, and they
Right.
only get like 20 gigs of data. How?
I don't
How?
know.
How
That's
can
because
people? How can this happen?
lack of competition. Satellite internet is a last ditch effort to have high speed internet. That's how they get away with charging, high amounts of prices for what little that they offer.
You know what that
Every,
reminds me of, Devin?
what?
I went to Cedar Point as a kid. Have you ever heard of Cedar Point?
I believe so.
Okay, so it's like that amusement park that's in Sandusky, Ohio. It's about
Yes.
45 minutes west of Cleveland.
Yes.
You're waiting in line for the longest ride, right? It's the best one. Everybody waits 2 hours for it. It's 105 degrees outside. Sun's beating on you, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know what's in the lines? Vending machines. And you know how much that bottle of water costs to get out of that vending machine?
It'll be about $2 or $3.
Isn't that crazy?
Mm-hmm.
But that's what this is. It's
Yes.
like they've got a stranglehold on the rural American limited access market. I mean, $130 for 20 gigs of data at 5 megabits per second. I mean, what are you going to do with that? You're going to watch a couple videos on 720p and you're done.
If that.
It's crazy. I couldn't believe it. And then actually, I hope this guy is watching. There was a guy in the comment section that was telling me that my numbers were inaccurate about what people are paying for home internet.
Oh yeah, I
The
saw that.
data that I found was that people are paying on average $80 per month to get 100 plus megabits per second. I pay 60. My brother plays 80.
I pay
I know
about
people that are paying 100. I like how many people out there are paying less than $50 to get 100 plus megs?
I pay about $73 monthly, including, taxes and equipment rental. I mean, I pay about $73 to $80 a month, depending on how it goes. So that's
This,
not an accurate average.
yeah, because there's people paying more.
Yes.
I know there's people paying 35 for fiber. Lucky them. I ain't one of them. You know, it's
I want to move
fiber's
there.
gig speed is available to me at $200 a month.
Exactly. And data shouldn't be that expensive, especially when we rely on it so heavily. I think that's just, a classism kind of thing because it's like, oh, hey, you want the gigabits per second? It's like, hey, if you're loaded with money, you can afford it. But here's the important part of the merger. And people think, oh, we're reducing the number of wireless carriers from four to three. That's true. But what good is having, four national carriers if in reality you have so many cities and states in which one truly reaches? Like that's the point of the merger is to aim in those areas because if you're living in a city where Verizon's your only choice, there's no competition. Why should they keep their prices low? But when a new
So
competitor comes into the area and gives you the same service, the same kind of service, but charges you a fraction of the price, why wouldn't people be enticed by that?
so let's put a bow on this, Devin.
Yes.
Let's just cap it off here with the merger. In terms of politics, in terms of obstacles, there's opposition to the merger. There's people that are pro, there's people that are anti. Powerful people that are pro, powerful people that are anti. The
Mm-hmm.
only ones that matter is the FCC and the DOJ at this point.
Correct.
In terms of the likelihood of approval, are you confident with a certain percentage that it's going to either be approved or denied?
I'm confident that it's going to be approved. I mean, the points made through Sprint and T-Mobile. I mean, the way that Sprint's former CEO Clore shut down the advocate for AT&T, the contractor to AT&T, in terms of this. I mean, I think that they're on to something, and they need this word to show the world what they can do. Like we've been leaders for quite some time in just about every category, and that's because we took a chance. But we're scared to take that chance, much as a generation. If we're going to lead, that's what it takes.
So put a percentage on it, percentage that it gets approved.
Neck and neck race, I'm going to say anywhere between a 52 to a 55% approval rating.
So, okay, so you're just going a little bit over 50-50 that it's going to be approved?
Yes,
Okay.
because you got a lot of conservatives in office and a little few progressives, but a lot of progressives nowadays who are in favor of change have one thing that conservatives don't, and that's convincing.
Hmm. So I personally think that the merger has a very high chance of approval. I think with the FCC being so quiet about it, they haven't
Hmm.
said much about it. And the DOJ has not gotten in the way of Sprint and T-Mobile. I mean, they want to obviously know that this is in the best interest of the people. At least they have to make it appear that way, right?
Yes.
So they have to let people know, hey, we're really investigating this, right? We're going through our steps, we're going through our review process. I think ultimately the FCC is a non-issue. They're not getting in the way of this.
The thing is, I think that's why T-Mobile, for the most part, has been aggressively trying to get customer data because they want to show that people are actually happy with them. I mean, with me, I get, in small towns that I didn't think T-Mobile could pick up before, I'm averaging, 80 to 130 megabits per second in those areas. On an iPhone 7 I used to have in my hometown, I got almost 200 megabits. I was about 180.
Well,
I
it's
mean,
really good.
and it was 5 o'clock in the evening when everybody was at dinner. I mean, just everybody using their phones, restaurants.
Right.
I was in jam packed in the middle of a restaurant, got about 180 a second. And I thought that is just insane because I've had carriers in the past and I couldn't break 50 on those.
Yeah, I think when T-Mobile has good service, it's really good.
Oh, yeah.
But where it lacks, it's like non-existent. And I
Well,
think
there's
that's
that. I
just the simple
mean,
fact that their network is not completely done yet.
it's not. And the problem is with density. Like, that's where Verizon has perfected it because their network is dense. They got a lot of towers. And T
Devin,
Mobile doesn't.
I've seen literally 50 small cells deployed around Cleveland that
Hmm.
I frequently drive by. They are everywhere.
Yes.
I mean, those little buckets sitting on the top of those power lines, man.
Yeah, I've seen the little square cells on light poles on the interstate. I've seen them in my city. I've seen towers right near my house, and it's just crazy. I mean, they're trying to get the whole area connected.
Yeah,
I think with the 600 megahertz, it's going to be key to densifying the network because you've got, it's the lowest frequency ever used by a mobile carrier. If
it is low.
Verizon's
I mean,
seven
Verizon's using 700.
if their 700 is dense and travels far, their 600 will go even further. Like low
It will.
frequency is how TV and radios get into your house, even if it's just nothing but brick and mortar that nothing can penetrate.
But you know what's crazy? People forget about this. T-Mobile's band 71, the 600 megahertz band,
Yes,
is new tech. It's within the last 2 years.
yes.
People are still running their Samsung Galaxy S5s and S6s. They're
So
not
how,
band 71 compatible.
but how are they to know whether or not it works? They don't have a compatible device.
Well, that's what
Like
I'm
I had
saying is T-Mobile's got to do something. I don't know what it's going to take, but they've got to get people out of these legacy devices, man.
exactly, and I
They're still
think
thinking that T-Mobile sucks because they're running old tech.
exactly. I mean, any carrier is going to suck running old tech. I mean, there's no doubt about it. There's no way you can have an iPhone 4 function in this day and age because it's just going to be horrible.
Let's say
Like
I'm
I
running
have
a
right
let's
here a
say
10s, iPhone
okay,
10s, and it is band 71 compatible. It's the
right?
first iPhone, line that's had that. Fortunately, the X from that was introduced back in 2017 missed on that where the Spectrum was just freshly acquired and not banded yet.
Yeah, I needed
I
another year.
I work in a building where my data coverage is just tricky. I mean, in some spots it's great, other spots it's not. And they are currently right now in my area, Johnson City, Tennessee, in that market, working on Band 71 upgrades in my area. And the upgrades are starting to show because in my building, I have 3 bars and my data transmission has been fairly smooth for the most part. So I've noticed a difference.
So to kind of put a bow on the podcast today, Devin,
Mm-hmm.
what's what's the next step in the merger?
Well, the submission of the data, the approval, the next step afterwards is is putting in the newer towers because they'll have the resources and the money to deploy them. Adding the 2.5 gigahertz, refarming it to T-Mobile's compatibility. Every device nowadays, LG, Samsung, Apple, works on every carrier. So there's not a whole lot that they have to do to light the signal up. They just need to program it to their, carrier settings. But once all that gets deployed, customers are going to see their speeds probably double or triple on average. And then
I think
customers
I
that,
think I think you said something important there. Sprint customers are going to benefit a lot from this merger.
oh, they are. They are because where their coverage is not phenomenal, where T-Mobile is blanketing the area in 600 megahertz coverage, they'll finally be able to pick up in those areas they couldn't before.
So I'm upbeat about the merger. I'm very positive on it. It seems like you are as well.
Oh yeah.
I think we're all excited for it. A lot of the subscribers are now. Being that I am a subscriber to Verizon, to me, I'm still pro merger at this point, and I'm all for T-Mobile continuing to disrupt. I want the pressure on Verizon and AT&T.
Oh
So
yeah,
to me,
and
even
they
though I'm not on T-Mobile and I'm not a T-Mobile customer, I want T-Mobile to continue to grow.
oh Verizon and AT&T already know the pressure is on
I
because
wonder
why
if
do you
people
think they
realize this though. Like seriously, this is good for the market actually.
it is because because of it, AT&T and Verizon, in a desperate move to reacquire their customers, launched unlimited to begin with. Their CEOs, for the longest time, have been so adamant on the fact that customers only need 5 gigabytes of data, and then they're unhappy because you can't watch a movie on that. Like nobody knows how much data a movie, an hour and a half movie would take up, and their marketing plan for so long was don't get limited, buy an unlimited plan. It's like, but if I can watch as much as I want and not have my bill fluctuate, how am I getting limited?
Wow, it's been a crazy ride here with the merger. I mean, we're going to be watching it close. I'll
Mm-hmm.
be providing updates throughout. Obviously, I'm excited to see what the next step is. I think what we'll do. My plan was to be on here for about 40 or 50 minutes. I think we've actually gone beyond that, Devin.
Yes.
So I do want to go ahead and thank you for taking the time to join me here on the podcast. Uh, you've been an awesome guest. It's been very insightful. The discussion was very good, very productive, and I think you offered some great insights. So thank you for stopping by and spending the time with us here on the SMT podcast.
All right. Thank you very much for having me. To all loyal Sneed fans, continue to stay subscribed for the latest news. Keep in touch with your carrier's news releases as well for some information as well. But feel free to hear what we got to say. We got some great stuff.
Yeah, and the way that Devin got on the podcast was just in the comments section. Like I totally like that is the best part of the channel is the interaction I have with my subscribers and viewers. And that's pretty much how me and Devin hooked up here. So you never know, you may be the next guest on the SNE Mobile Tech podcast. We're continuing to expand our video portfolio. I'm going to continue to bring the news, like Devin said. Thank you for giving me that plug there, Devin. Much appreciated, man. If
This
there's
place lets your voice
anything,
be heard.
yeah, and if there's anything, Devin, if you want to say before we get going here.
To everybody, just keep a lookout for the future. See what we have to offer. I mean, this is our generation. We can greatly improve this. So if there's any chance that you have to make it better, no matter what, take that instance. We need that.
Yeah, I'm excited about the future, man. I really am.
Well, let's go right for it.
All right. Well, again, Devin, thank you for stopping by. I appreciate you taking the time to be here. I want to thank all of you that were in the comment section chatting it up. Appreciate you guys chiming in. All that viewed, all that participated. Again, thank you, Devin, for being here. I think we'll end it at that. So I am Steve from Steam Mobile Tech. Devin, go ahead.
And I am Devin. My channel is Rejected Spirit X,
All
although
right.
disregard the emo nature behind that one.
Thank you all. Thank you for stopping by and watching. And if you're watching this on replay, I hope you enjoyed it. I think we'll leave it at that. So thank you guys for tuning in. We'll see you guys on the next podcast.
Everybody
Peace.
have a great night.